Hello and welcome to this new Android development tutorial. This is part 5 of how to make a photo editor application for Android. In the previous tutorial we learned how can we load a bitmap, how can we set up the variables and how to make actually everything works to make it possible for us to show a bitmap. So if we go and run the current state of the app, if we go and select image, and we go and do this, it works. What should even work in real devices like yours is the take photo feature, okay? But of course this is an emulator and it doesn't work here, but it should work in your devices. So what we want to do next is actually modifying the bitmap in a way we want, right? So, to modify the bitmap, we will go back to the buttons we just created, right? Okay, so the buttons we created, as you can see, if we go and open an image, are feature 1 and feature 2. So, a simple feature that we can have or we can enable in our application would be to turn everything into grayscale, right? Grayscale. So black and white, basically, right? So how can we do that? So instead of feature 1, we will go to activity main.xml file, and we will delete this feature 1 text, and we will say grayscale. Okay, grayscale. Okay. And we will set an ID to this button that we will set it to maybe black and white, maybe will sound better. And we'll set it to B/W, right? And as ID, I'll set it black and white, right? So that's how we will define this button. So to access this button, we will go to our main activity.java file. And inside here, we won't touch this method anymore because it's already really large and we don't have to do anything else on that method. So we will go to the init method. So here, as you can see, is where we initialize the buttons and all of that. And as the same way we initialize the take photo button here, after this we will initialize our new feature button. So I'm gonna say final button. So final button. I will call this button black and white button. And I'll set this to find view by ID r.id.black and white. Okay. And now I will set a click listener after this button definition. So I'll set black and white button that set on click listener to new on click listener. So you know already how to do this. So it's the same we did on previous buttons. And inside these button, what will happen when we click on the black and white button? Okay, so we will create a thread that will enable us to make a black and white image. So we're gonna go ahead and create new thread because we don't want to run this on a UI thread because we will be blocking the UI thread and that's not good for user experience, right? So then we're gonna say public void. I won't forget this time. So when we do thread, we're gonna say that start and we will end with a semicolon, right? So public void run. We will put parentheses, we will open the method, and here we have to create a loop that will change the pixels. So how do we do that? Well, we're gonna go ahead and we'll create a for loop. So we're gonna say for int I equals 0, right? So we want to iterate for every pixel in the bitmap. So I'm gonna say I less than pixel count. Do we have that here? So pixel count max, no, it's not max pixel count, it's just pixel count. Pixel count, here we go. So I less than pixel count, and we'll set it to I++, right? And inside the for method, well, basically here we will create an array of bytes, right? So let's test if this works, right? So I'm gonna say byte of size 4, and I'll call this pixel, and I'll set these to sorry, this is apparently not a way to create arrays. So byte array pixel, and we will set this to let me check. Can I want to transform an integer in a byte array so we can change the values of it. So if we go and say pixels at I, okay, and here we have a warning that says byte array. So we will say, can we transform somehow this into an array? So I'm gonna say arrays. Let me check if we can do that. Okay. This is kind of strange because we have to get different values of the colors of the pixel, right? But what we can also do is we can change the pixel value, or maybe divide the pixel value by 2, right? So for example, I'll say pixels at I divided equal to 2, okay? So if we do this, this will divide every value of the pixel will be divided by 2, right? So after we complete this for loop, what we want to do is to set the new pixels to the bitmap. So we're going to say bitmap dot set pixels, okay, so set pixels, and what I'll pass here will be, first of all, pixels, of course, the pixels I want to set, then the offset, which is 0, the width, which is width, the offset on x, which is 0, the offset on y, which is also 0, and we also want to pass the width and height, which is, of course, width and height. So here we are setting the pixels to a new value, if you want to call it that way, right? So after we have set the pixels, we want to make the changes take effect in the UI. So for that, we will run this on the UI thread. So I'm gonna write run on UI thread, and I'll create a new runnable, okay? And inside this run method, I will set image view dot set image bitmap, and I will set this to bitmap, okay? So now these right here, these 3 lines are our experiment, right? These 3 lines right here can be whatever the case you want, the way you want to transform the image into a new one, right? So let's now run the application. Let me check. So let's now run the application to see if it works as we expect. So now the app is being installed. Now I go and click on select image. I will select one image, and I will press B/W. And when I press, you can see that the colors of the image have changed. Why they changed? Well, because we actually divide all of the pixels by 2. If we keep pressing B and white, it will change even more, and it will change even more. As I told you, this is how we can create our image or photo editor, right? So this is a way of doing it, right? But sometimes there is a better way, right? If we want to make a really serious photo editor, we may want to use native code. So this will be also a short introduction on how to use native code in Android. So native code means C and C++, and in C or C++, in this case we will use C. And what we will do with C is really that C gives us more freedom in the way we can access elements and all of that. So to make this possible, we will do the following. We will go here on the top where it says Android, and we'll switch the project view to project, okay? And as you can see now, we have a different way of looking at our project. If we open app and then we open source and then we open main, then we have here a folder called Java, a folder called res, and the Android manifest.xml file. So what we will do here is create a new folder that will contain our native source code files. Okay, so in this case we're going to say new simple just directory, right? So we'll say new directory, and the directory name of these will be CPP, right? Just as convention. Even though we will use C and not C++, we will call this CPP, right? And what else we will do here? Well, that as I told you previously, that folder will contain a very, very small file of C, which you don't really have to understand C, because we'll use the same syntax as we do in Java to do it in C. So we will right click on this folder, and we click new, and we click on file. And here on file, I will write photo editor.c. Okay, so this will be our source code file for in C. We also will create another source, it's not really source code, but a compilation script for C. Okay, for this you have to download the NDK. So if you don't have it, the Android Studio will prompt you a message. They'll say, do you want to download NDK? You will say yes, and you will just download this. Again, this is optional because, as I told you, this is really to your creativity. You can use C, you can use other things, you can stick with Java, because it really depends on what you want to do, right? It really depends on the features of your application. So inside this CPP folder, we're gonna right click new file, and here we will create a special file that's called cmake. So make sure you write it exactly as I do, cmake lists.txt, okay? And we will press an OK, and we will open that file. So it's opened by default actually. So when we open this file, we will write the following. So I'm gonna say cmake, okay, cmake, and then minimum required, and we'll set the minimum version that cmake should be. In this case would be capital version, and we will set this to 3.6 because that's a kind of new one. It just works for us, right? After that, we will add the library, so it will be native library. So all we're gonna do is basically say add library, okay, and we will call this library photo editor. This is a shared one, so I'll call it shared, okay, and I will set this to the file name we created, which is called photo editor.c. okay. So basically, this is how we add a library. And when we want to link the libraries, we're gonna say the following: target link libraries, and we'll open parentheses, and here I'll write the name of the library. In this case, I named it photo editor, okay. And I also put Android, okay, because we're specifying it as an Android library. Okay, so basically this is everything we want to make inside the cmake lists.txt file we just created. Now that was basically this. We can now switch back to our old view of Android view if you want, more familiar one. So, and now we will go and open our Gradle scripts, the second one, the build.gradle module app. So it's not the first, the second. We will open the second one. And in this file, we will tell the Android Studio IDE how it should use what we just tell him. Okay, so after this first bracket of default config, what we will write, or we don't really have to write this. So let's make this a little bit simpler. So after the default config, let me check. I think I'm right here. So after the default config, after the default config right here, we're gonna type the following. You're gonna type external native build, okay, and I'll type, and we'll open brackets, and then I'll type cmake, and we'll open brackets again, and here I will specify the path of our cmake list files we just created. So double quotes, this will be set to source slash main slash cpp slash cmake, oops, we have to use the same name, so cmake lists.txt. Okay, so what this is saying basically is that we are using an external build file, and we are specifying the location of that file. So after we do this, we will click on sync now, okay, and we will wait for the project to be synced, okay. And after we sync the project, what we will do is that we will go, first of all, if it had some errors, or if you don't have NTK, just install it. And if you have errors, so make sure you're making the same as I'm doing here. We'll go to our main activity.java, and outside the method, for example, outside the onResume method, before or after, it doesn't really matter. We'll type the following. We'll type static, okay, open brackets, and I'll say system.load library, okay, and we will pass the name of the library, which in this case was photo editor, okay. So what this is saying, this is enabling us to have access to that special library. So if we go back here and open our CPP file, so let me check if I have to go back to our project. So if we click on build and refresh C++ linked project, we will have to be able to edit this C file we just created. So apparently we cannot access it for some reason. Okay, but we will open these if we go to the previous way. So you can say project main CPP, and inside CPP we have photo editor.c, right? So inside this file we will do and create a really simple script for us to use. So the first thing we will do here is include the basic library we want. So I'm gonna say number sign include, and I'll say gni.h, okay, which means Java native interface, which is a way to communicate between C and Java, okay. And if we go back to main activity.java, after the static method, we can create some method that will enable us to actually change the pixels in a free way without the Java limitations, right? So you're gonna say private static native void, and I will name this black and white, okay. And what I'll pass here will be, of course, depending of what I need. For example, I may need to pass it the pixels, of course, so I'll be int array and I'll pass pixels, the int of width, the width of the pixels, and also the height, so int height. And as you can see here, if you say right here private static native void, it says this method is not used. Okay, so that's because we haven't really used it yet and we haven't really implemented it yet on our system. Okay, so now what we have to do is to create that method in our C file. So first of all, if we want to call this method, okay, if we want to call this method, we won't be able to because it doesn't exist anywhere, right? It should exist on our native file. So, but because we haven't created it yet, we don't have it. Okay, so private static native void black and white, we pass an integer array pixels, right? Then we pass the width and the height of this. Okay, but the issue here is that sometimes, depending on the Android Studio version, instead of using the CPP folder right here, it uses a folder called GNI. Okay, so we will rename this to GNI. So gonna go here to refactor, rename, and instead of CPP, we will go and name it to JNI. Okay, and I will click on the refactor, and that's renamed. And now if I go on the to avoid the confusion, I will go to Android and I'll open the build.gradle file, and here instead of CPP, I will set this to JNI, basically. So if we sync the project now, hopefully it should work. Now if you go back to the main activity thing right here, and we will say we still don't have a way to create this method because the file is still not being detected. Okay, so how can we make sure this will be detected? So let me check right here. So inside this file right here, so let's now try to call the black and white thing. Okay, so if I want to run it right now, let's see first if it compiles or not. And something is wrong right here. So in the same CMake lists file, we have a problem. So in the add library thing, I think we have sort of a problem. Let me check what's going on here. Okay, maybe it's the syntax of this. Okay, maybe it is about the syntax. So here add library, we have to call it with an underscore. So add underscore library. Okay, and we will click on the elephant here to try to fix this. So we click on the elephant, which is sync rail project. Okay, so right now I think it's actually syncing the project. So that was again a typo error from my side. Okay, now it's building symbols. And as you can see, now inside the CPP folder, we actually are able to access our photo editor.c file. Okay, so now we have fixed the problem we just had. And here this black and white turns to red, which is actually good because it means it's working. So we will click on this warning sign right here and we will click on create function. Okay, and when we click on that, it goes to our photo editor.c, and there it creates the function of our file, right? So now we can use the power of the C programming language to improve this a bit better. Okay, So how can we use the C programming language to change the colors of this, of a bitmap? So we will do it in the following way. So we have the pixels pointer, which will contain the pixels of the bitmap we created, okay? And we also want to be able to access the colors, the individual colors. So we're gonna say char pointer. You don't have to really understand it because it's really simple. I will call this colors, right? And I will set these to char pointer and pixels, which basically is saying transform pixels into a char pointer. Okay? And now, right here, we are actually able to manipulate these whatever the way we want. So, for example, C is very similar to Java, so I can create a for loop. I can say for int I equals 0, I less than pixel count, which we haven't defined it yet, so I'm gonna say int pixel count is equal to width times height, okay? And while I is less than pixel count, we're gonna say I plus plus, okay? Awesome. And inside these, we can, but now we have to think about it a bit more. Because the pixel count right here, it is in terms of integers. And an integer consists of 4 colors, of 4 bytes. So we have to multiply these by an additional 4. So you're gonna say times width times height times 4, right? So now we have the actual pixel count, and what we will do now will be colors at I, we will divide it by 2, okay? But not really. Maybe if we want to make this gray, kind of black and white picture, we want to add the colors and then create a kind of average, right? So how can we do that? Okay, we'll do it in the following way. So we will go here and create a char, or actually an unsigned char average. Okay, and average will be set to colors I, okay, plus colors I plus 1 plus colors I plus 2. The issue here is that we have 4 things. One is green, the other is red, the other is blue, so RGB, but we also have the alpha channel. So we have to figure out which of these will be the alpha channel, right? So basically, in order for us to figure out which of these colors will be the alpha channel, basically I think the third one, I mean the fourth color will be the alpha channel if I'm not wrong, right? So the average will be equal to the sum of these, okay? And we will put all of these in parentheses, okay? All of these guys in parentheses, and then we will divide these by 3, okay? So don't forget to put a parenthesis here, and I will divide it by 3. So I'm taking the average of these numbers, okay? And what I'll do here is that I will set the average of these numbers to every one of those numbers. So I will set colors at I will be set to average, okay? Colors at, oops, let me check. Then colors at I plus 1 will also be set to average, and the same with colors colors at I plus 2 will be also set to average. So basically, this is done. So that's everything we have to do. Okay, so that's everything we have to really do here. And now when this ends right here, so for better illustration purposes, right now we have to increment the integer I by 4. But to avoid confusion, I will change this for loop with a while loop. So I'm gonna say while, and I will delete all of these, and I will say only while I is less than pixel count. And of course we don't have I, but I will define it here. So int I equals 0, and now it enables me to increase by 4. So you can say I plus equal 4, and now this is ready to be used. Okay, this is ready to be used. If we go to our main activity.java file, we now have this black and white thing, and we will search for the button that turns everything black and white. Okay, where it is? Here it is. So, and instead of calling this for thing right here for and all of this, we will call black and white, and we will pass pixels, width, and height. So this black and white is the C method. If I run the program to check if it works, so let me see, let me check. So here is the activity, and I click on select image, I select an image, and I will click on black and white. And as you can see, the image has now turned in black and white. Okay, we have some errors here, but we will fix them in the later tutorial. So basically, this is how you create a text editor. In the next tutorial, which will be the last tutorial, we will fix all of these and add new features and all of that. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you in the next one. Bye.